Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This podcast is a catch-up with the crew. That's all I really need to say. So, couldn't think of a story to tell this week, so we came up with the plan of having a sit down and talking our way through what's been done and what's been said. So, hope you enjoy this. If you don't want to listen to us do this, then skip the podcast, but it's a good one. It was a very enjoyable discussion. So, if you want to see beneath the curtains or whatever they are, then keep listening. I've just let it run. We did get sort of thrown off the Wi-Fi at one point, but I've just let it run because it was fun. Our microphones didn't work, so we both recorded off our laptops. So if the vocal quality is not too good, I'm really sorry, but we will be back with you doing stories the week after once the characters speak to us once more. Thanks for listening. You're the best. Bye. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is a last-minute recording of catching up with the cast because I couldn't write an episode because I couldn't think of one. So after wondering what I was going to do, I phoned my brother and he said, why don't we have a catch up with the cast and a sort of idea of where we're at, because we're coming up to episode 175 and I would like to say that's an appropriate time to catch up, but it just seems like it's happened as many of the things do in this podcast. People think we have a real clear idea of what's going on in the future. What you don't realise is that we make it up as we go along. So I was at a bit of a loss this week. So I'm going to get everyone to introduce themselves. I'm play the part of Will and about another 100 characters, and I do kind of the narration and stuff on top of that. And I'm one of the writers. I have Yvonne.
Hi.
Who is?
I'm Sally.
And
a vampire.
She knows a lot about her part. And then I'll hand over to Greg, who is...
Hi, I'm Simon de Montfort and William Marshall and very briefly Ernest Wainwright as well.
Oh, yeah, and cool. And then we have Dee, who is...
Hi, I'm Lucy Fur.
Lucy Fur.
Lucy Fur.
Yeah.
And that's it, I think. I'm just the devil.
Just the whole devil.
Yeah.
Yeah. who goes from French accent to English accent to whatever accent anyone wants to hear. Although we've been having some really ridiculous French accents recently.
Ridiculous. How dare you, monsieur?
I wonder if you have any French listeners that sit there and cover their face or sit there and love it. I would love to hear that feedback from people, you know.
Yeah, well, it did occur to me actually just the other day that my boss is a French-speaking Belgian man who lives in Paris, and a member of the team that I lead is a Parisienne herself. So, eek, what have I done?
That helps though, doesn't it? Because you're listening to them in meetings, and so you kind of...
I promise you, neither of them speak like the God du Périgord.
Oh my God, how dare you do that, sir? It's wonderful. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's probably a bit more Monty Python than
I think,
my colleagues are.
I think Dee came up with the idea of the French accent for Lucy, though, didn't she? From
originally,
when we did the first
yeah,
Lucy.
I was playing around with the... what was it? The Allo Allo reference. I shall say this only once.
Yeah, that was good.
And then I realised that actually I couldn't do big paragraphs in a French accent that sounded okay.
Yeah, but the great thing about this podcast is it kind of fell in line because people hear the voice of whoever they find as the sexiest accent. So it just turned out that we could turn the sort of the story
character
into the character to be able to make whatever sort of voice they want to make. So it kind of worked out very well.
That made sense.
Shut up, nothing makes sense. Yeah. So before we start, we've introduced the cast. This started in 2021, which seems an awful long time ago now, and we're slowly going up through the ranks, although we've had a bit of a glitch with going on to Spotify. Always somewhere in the top 100 of the fiction charts for Great Britain and America, which is great.
I don't think that should be undersold either. Like, all the listeners that are tuning in every week are the ones contributing to the success of the podcast, you know, to reach into the top 100.
Absolutely.
I don't think that's to be underplayed.
No. And we're a niche podcast, apparently, and we've gone from horror to horror comedy, apparently, in the fiction charts. So there we go. Thank you to Apple for that. And I'd just like to thank some OGs. So we've got Damon Wolf, who kind of helps run the social media, and we've got people like Dawn Porter and Crystal Craig, who've been there since day one as well. So thank you to them, and thank you to everyone who's joined us. We're nearly at 1,000 on the private group on Facebook, and there's all the social media if you want to join us. And also you can support us, and people are supporting us, and there's a guy called Matthew Owens who's bought us all 13 coffees recently, so we're all pretty wired out of our heads, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, so it's quite nice to be recognised for what we do. So the podcast started off with me doing my journal and turning the voice of the werewolf into the evil person inside my head. But things have moved on since then, and we have now got many more voices in there, which is kind of cool. And we first brought Greg into the podcast with his book Il Lupo. Do you want to fill us in on the Looting the Museum podcast?
Yeah. Thanks, Fen. So we did episode 105, Looting the Museum, and it was Fen's idea, and it was a great idea, I think. And it was, we like to remind ourselves, a first in podcast fiction, that we spliced two art forms together, because we extracted one of the characters from my first novel, Il Lupo, and brought him into episode 105. Not only that, but we also wove a scene from the novel Il Lupo into episode 105, and Will came out of the British Museum and he bumps into the character Ernest Wainwright, who's on the way in, and Ernest goes to the British Museum in Il Lupo. You can see two different aspects of that happening from reading that novel. And actually, if you then read the second of my novels, Kill and Cure, you hear a little bit about what happened at the end of episode 105 with its explosive, murderous outcome.
I think that was I remember when you two were discussing that episode, actually, and it was a really nice idea, in the sense of, you've got two creative people doing their things, and putting it together like that was not only original, but it was, I don't know, it kind of warmed the heart a little bit, because that's the great thing about this entire process, is it's an expression of somebody's creativity, isn't it? And being able to do that with another person. I remember, like I say, when you guys first brought it up, I was like, that's so brilliant.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people have mentioned it's, you know, that it's a clever thing to have done. I think Ernest is maybe going to come back into our lives in the future, isn't he, at some point? Yeah,
I think there's room for Ernest in everybody's life. I think everybody needs an Ernest in their life.
Yeah,
and certainly Simon de Montfort needs an Ernest, in my opinion.
And then we sort of got chatting, didn't we, on X and stuff, and then eventually I turned around to you one day and went, help, and that's when we started kind of writing the thing together.
Yeah, we did. That sort of just sprung up out of nowhere, didn't it? You'd started this storyline with negging the Nixies, and I remember you saying to me, I've got an idea that I want to bring in a new character who's going to be some sort of expert in the occult who works with the supernatural department of the police force, but I don't know anything about him. And then we started kicking ideas around about what he might be like. And it wasn't until a week or two after he'd been born, I think, that we decided that he was in fact immortal.
Yeah. Well, it was really weird because you came out of the blue with the name, didn't you, Simon de Montfort, and then we found out that he was a
Yes.
12th century knight. Yeah, and then
That was how the conversation went, wasn't it? What should the name be? And we'd been picking names around. It's like, oh, Simon what? Simon de Montfort's a good name. Oh, hang on a minute. I think there is a Simon de Montfort. And it's like, oh, yeah. But he's been dead for hundreds of years. And then it was like, but what if that is him?
Yeah, we kind of made it
and
up.
It turns out it is.
Yeah. So he came in and kind of...
Don't you think that's like a really good juxtaposition, though? You've got like the idea of, I mean, depends on your views in the world, but Lucifer, and we've met God and everything, haven't we? So you've got all these kind of, dare I say, fictional characters alongside, sorry people, but alongside these people of history as well. Like, it's a really cool amalgamation of everything kind of smooshed together. Like,
how does it feel being Lucifer in the background, Dee, and constantly being the actual center of everything that's going on? Because it's really your game playing behind everything, aren't you?
You're like the shit stirrer.
That's a really good question.
Because I never know how much
I get given the lines and I read them. So you're the shit stirrer in the background, right?
Ah,
so
but like,
that's true.
It must be quite cool that your character is kind of the key center to everything, really. No. She's like, yeah, you just give me the lines out there.
It is. I just have this secret passion and will that he, she, they have a light side. We were discussing this earlier.
Right.
I kind of approach it in terms of, I always think that they're not a devil, that there is something there that's actually not quite so dark.
Well, it's interesting.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And Dee and I was speaking about this earlier, and I said, don't forget, Lucifer's a fallen angel, right? Lucifer was originally one of God's highest inner circle, right? So Lucifer's a deity. Lucifer is of the kingdom of heaven originally, so built for that existence, and of course fallen, so something's gone a bit awry somewhere along the line, don't get me wrong, but there is something heavenly about Lucifer, as well as something eternally mischievous.
I think we felt that when in the one where Lucifer's summoned to heaven to come and get the soul of, is it Simon de Montfort she comes to get the soul of? And she's there with kind of a resignation. It's like, okay, I'm here. And then you've dragged me here to do this job, and now you're telling me to go away again. It's kind of like, I suppose you get a feeling of resignation of the devil, like just there to play a part, really. I suppose it's to do a job, isn't it?
Yes, I'll just plug episode 145, Oh, What a Night. That was the episode you just referred to there.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Not that I've got them all memorized.
I wish I did. I was. Yeah.
It's Raining Kittens.
Oh, Kittens of Doom. No, that came later. That was one of Dee's favourite lines, was the Kittens of Doom, which were a gift she bestowed upon our heroes, I think, to use as a weapon, was it not?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, she gifted us the Kittens of Doom to take out one of the Blood God's bodyguards, if I remember.
I think that would be a good one, though.
What, Kittens of Doom?
Kittens of Doom.
Do you think you get loved to death? I don't think he got loved to death. No. But no, I see what you mean with Lucifer. She's kind of commanding the board, but there's kind of, I think what she's doing is she's trying to rub something in God's face. I've got, I'm trying to get back into I'm trying to control this, and you're being a bit of a sort of not nice thing, and because the god in this seems to be like sort of standing in the background, doesn't he? Not doing the right lot.
Yes. Yeah.
She's quite playful as well, and she's got a good sense of humour, and I like that side of it. And I like the episode that you've just written, the one last week. I like that when you're on the beach and she
shows up in disguise.
I really myself for that episode.
I really like that episode.
Yeah,
very
I think with the way that the podcast is going, there are the moments of there's moments of comedy, there's moments of, there's been drama and sadness and stuff which I didn't really see coming, and then moments of realization. So our characters, I think, driven by the people behind the characters as well as knowing the characters, is that they've become sort of more than they were originally. Like Lucifer was supposed to be this kind of overpowering character who could command everything, and
which is very much of the stereotype of.
Yeah, but there seems to be like a bit of her having to go through it. And then I loved it when Greg said, "Oh yeah, God is," I can't remember the name of the golfer, but like just this ordinary chap who turns up and is this. Was it?
Oh, he looked like Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah. Well, it's such a
Jesus looked like Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah, just the idea that the character turns up and looks like just an ordinary, after Gabriel, with all these flashiness and flamboyance and like golden flicked hair and all this kind of stuff, comes up and plays the character of It is strange. We have Lucifer in the background controlling everything, and now we're writing the book part of that season that we did. We're actually going to bring Lucifer into the background all the time, and I think that's a reflection of the stuff that you've done, Dee, is that we're going to have her always in the background. Because even in Negging the Nixies, in the very first one, when I wrote the chapter that's going to go into the book, we're going to have Lucifer sat in a car watching what's going on.
We've edited you in.
Oh.
Yeah. So it wasn't there originally, but because of the character that you play, what we've done is I've kind of brought her in, that she's always going to be in the background overseeing what's going on.
Even when you think she's not there.
Yeah, even when you think she's not there.
That's secretly what I do anyway.
But it'd be interesting because I think with the new season that's coming up, I think it's going to be quite interesting, because maybe we'll find out the reason why she's consistently in the background. Maybe there's going to be a change of background, because.
So we'll explore Lucifer's story, will we?
I think we're going to explore everybody's story. I think that's what got me on Sunday. Was there's so many great characters now that I kind of sat there and had a mind sort of fizz. Yeah. So what did everyone think? Yeah, what did everyone think of the William Marshall series with our knights?
Well, I mean, I'll quickly go first on that one.
I think Greg will say that he enjoyed it very much.
I had an absolute ball.
I think every time he records an episode of anything, of whatever accent he's doing, he does go a little bit hoarse for a few days afterwards. So he does slip into the characters of a very over Welsh.
Is he a method actor, Dee? Does he hold the Welsh accent?
Kind of comes in every now and again. The Simon de Montfort ones isn't going to leave very much. It's
Simon
Simon
is with us constantly. I should
he's always here.
If you're mad at each other, does he come out then?
Yeah. So I do have to remind him that we're actually at home, and he can speak freely if he wishes.
I say, Dee, would you pass me that salt over here, please? So I can put it upon my dinner this evening.
And I appropriately tell him to.
What was really fun with that was that My brother's a medieval reenactor, and when I told him that we'd done William Marshall as being Welsh, he was like, "Yeah, but he wouldn't be Welsh; he'd be French." And I was like, "Okay." And then he listened to it. He went, "Yeah, that's right."
There was something, we said this a few times, didn't we? There was something. Yeah. There is something about male Welsh actors, or some of them, really
dour,
good ones,
isn't it? Very doer, you know.
Richard Burton, Anthony Hopkins. There's something about that timbre to their voices that just makes it really serious, you know. And I wanted to try and get a feel for that whilst also hamming it up as hard as I could.
I was kind of thinking that it's not dissimilar to his Tom Jones, but sort of. So, you know, I'm kind of not sure.
My Tom Jones, that's lovely.
So when you do the karaoke, do you do Tom Jones with the Welsh accent?
Absolutely.
Oh God, yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
We need to get more karaoke.
Maybe we can,
yeah,
maybe we should have another karaoke at Phaeton night.
I feel like we should possibly put this in public vote.
Bring out an album.
Oh my God, nobody deserves to hear that.
Oh my God.
No,
but listen, what I was going to say about the William Marshall thing was that it was a little different, because obviously you weren't the werewolf for the first time, and that was something that made me quite nervous to take on, because it's quite a mantle to take on. You've been doing this for years and it's your thing, and suddenly the responsibility was shifted to me to be half of the werewolf. So I took that very seriously, but something I didn't take too seriously was the French accents, and I have to say I couldn't have had more fun with that. And the interplay between those French characters, the Count de Périgord and Bruce Delalay, who is a character I love talking about as much as that voice acting. The interplay between them and the characters you did, Percy and Gervais, was just so much fun. I had such a scream doing that.
I think what was good for me was that we have this. I loved writing for your character, for William Marshall, because he was this kind of dour, kind of Welshman, and then around him all the characters were just having so much fun. You know, like you had Percy, who is this very brave knight who isn't, and then you've got Welly and Gervais, who were kind of like, oh God, Percy's going to take, and it was just. I loved the fact that you took on the mantle of the werewolf, because I think you brought something to Fenn's life, to our werewolf's life that hadn't happened before. This kind of dour sort of knight who was very forthright and very morals, yet around him everyone else was kind of not doing the right thing. It was kind of cool. So I really enjoyed that. I mean, I think we are going to have to go back and visit William Marshall at some point. It was just with after them fighting and beating a dragon, it was kind of like, where do we go from there?
But listeners, take heart, because we do have an idea about where we might be taking William Marshall and the gang next. So we will be revisiting him, and we do have a bunch of ideas about things that he might have to navigate, shall we say, during his life as a werewolf. Definitely.
He's too good a character. When I went down that track, it was kind of a bit of a worry. But then as soon as I heard the Welsh accent, it was like, this is going to be good. Yeah, there's a lot to take from that. With the next story arc, we're still envisioning our intrepid duo being surrounded by different people, but like, who's your favourite character out of the whole thing so far?
Always the ones that I can never pronounce that you always ask me to do. What's that?
Like the spaniel. Actually, it was a personal favourite of mine. There was a spaniel last week whose name was Google Pixel Nixie.
No, he's actually based that character on our dogs at home here.
Well, you've got a spaniel. and we've got spaniels. So I thought if there's anybody that can understand what a spaniel like, and like me and Greg have said this before, that we do this for our own sense of humour. Really, it's amazing that all these people listen, but really we tend to just sit on the phone and giggle. And we thought Dee and Yvonne would really laugh at the fact that we've chosen the spaniel, because you've got Branny and we've got the gang
the
here.
sea of spaniels.
And Branny's going through the wars at the moment. So I thought, well, it'd be quite fun to bring this mad character into it. And I actually sat and laughed when you Dee actually made the line that, no, that's what he looks like. This third level demon of hell actually looks like a boss-eyed spaniel with ears that are too long. And you laughed for about 10 minutes at ears like furry fucking flags.
Yeah. But the thing is I have fantastic memories of spaniels from when I was a child, and you'd go into a field of like wheat or something, and the spaniel would fuck off and disappear, but then all you would see is them jumping out, and all you see is these ears flying through the air. It was perfect. Fuck off furry flags. It was just like, yep, that is the spaniel in a nutshell.
But I think we're going to have to bring that demon back in at some point, So the more spaniel demons, the better. So that was good fun.
It takes
and kittens of doom.
Bug eyes. I think that's it. They've got such lovely chocolate box eyes in real life.
Yeah,
spaniels.
But he's a demon after all, isn't he? We had to make him look a bit.
We're gonna have to get some funny demons in and some. What's on?
Well, we had
our demon spaniel next to us with a little.
We had the white
around his neck at the moment.
We had the white bunny that came up outside the cave when they were trying to hunt the dragon. So I'm trying to get all the creatures in there. We need to get. The problem with cats is that they're very, very cute, but it's kind of working a comedy angle with a cat is quite difficult, isn't it? Because because they're so cool.
I've got an idea.
Yeah.
I've got an idea.
Oh, yes.
We ought to talk about this off. You've given me a great idea about a cat.
What about yoga poses?
No, it's going to be one of Lucy's cats. So, yoga. But now I've got two ideas. Yes, and yes.
Yeah, I've got ideas about cats as well.
So I've got an idea for
a yoga cat.
A demon cat that works for Lucy that tells everyone to fuck off. So I think there's an idea in the making there.
Yeah,
keep your ears peeled for that one in weeks to come, folks. There will be a cat.
Cats are such big characters that I think it would be quite easy to turn one into a little bastard for the story.
Yeah, but it's like the problem with cats is they're so cool and aloof, aren't they? It's like it's trying to do something with them that is kind of. Well, I'm sure I'll lose to this battle and we'll end up with a comedic.
I think between the four of us, we can definitely make comedy cats. I mean, aren't they like 90% of like internet traffic or something?
Yeah. Someone's telling me that the best way to make $1 million is to make a picture book with cats in, or a calendar. And I was like, oh, right.
Yeah,
so.
I was actually doing, I was thinking about doing a little bit of a Marmalade diary. Be more like Marmalade, I think, or be like Marmalade.
Marmalade's our little ginger cat. For reference there.
And she just does some hilarious things. And there are worse things on the internet, aren't there?
Oh, there sure are.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Who's your favourite character?
Well, I quite like Lord Percy. Now, I knew immediately, straight away. I'll just say the eagle-eared listeners among you might have noticed that Simon de Montfort had a friend called Lord Percy, who went with him on a search for the Holy Grail in episode 1450, Oh, What a Night. Right, and he was the Count of Clitheroe, I think.
Right.
And William Marshall, of course, has a sidekick called Lord Percy, who's the Earl of Northumberland, I think he was, wasn't he? Was he the Earl? And he was quite a main player in that storyline, and I thought he was very, very funny. I really enjoyed Percy, who had all the bravado and self-promotion of a superstar knight, But when push came to shove, he was usually caught hiding behind the sofa and waiting for William to sort it all out. And then he'd come out and write a song about how he'd done it himself, you know. So he's a brilliant character. And I really enjoyed Percy's interactions with Gervais. So you might say there's a bit of recency bias there, but I really enjoyed those two characters in the way they were the cream to William Marshall's coffee, because he was so straight and they was, you know, kind of wacky.
He is the straight man out of the trio, really, isn't he? Yeah. I quite like it. I like Sally as a character, but the problem that I had writing the character for Sally, I was trying to write it on since last Wednesday, and it's just that so much has happened to her, and there's such a depth of what's going on there now, because she's birthed children, and this has happened and that has happened, and she's interacted with Lucifer, and she's interacted with the vampires from hell and all this kind of stuff.
A lot's happened to Sally, but we've not really covered any of it in great depth yet. So it's quite. You tried to surmise it, I think, too quickly. Like, you can't do everything that's happened to Sally in one episode.
And I love the character of William Marshall, and I love the character of Lucifer, who's just this sort of enigma sat behind the scenes, who's kind of playing the game. I was thinking of maybe bringing in like Lucifer against Fate, playing dice with the characters. So we have like Fate, who knows what's going to happen, yet Lucifer keeps coming in and rolling the dice, because we had her roll the dice once and it came up a 7 on a 6-sided dice.
Yeah,
so
I kind of like that.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of her coming in, this is what's going to happen, and then messing it all up. So God's like,
by the way, eagle-eared listeners among you will notice that the number 7 keeps coming up as well.
Yeah. It's a plan of ours, isn't it? We try and get the number 7 in there.
As often as we can, throw a 7.
Yeah. I mean, I really like Sally. I really like the Lucifer character. I really like writing for the Professor. William has become sort of like a character who is sort of caught in the crossfire a lot at the moment, but I'm sure I'm going to bring him back into the kind of fore, as it were. We'll just see how that goes, because we've got the modern life going on now, and we're going to try and get back into it.
Yeah, give it a little bit of substance.
Can I just ask a question to you, then?
Yeah.
When you are writing, and because for me, when I first listened, you've got this very, very easy way of talking and telling a story, and it's really relatable, and it's just very comfortable to listen to, and it's not forced, it just feels very natural.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? How did you know that you could sit and sort of tell a story in that way? I mean, what made you? How did you get into that?
One of the great things about Fen, as an outside perspective, is Fen as an actual person has some amazing life stories, and they are so amazing that a lot of people actually don't believe them. And because they're just so out there. So I know I'm kind of like butting in a little bit here, but from an outside perspective, naturally, he's had lots of stories that he can just retell. And I think when you're writing stories, it's just it's another expression.
My brother's a real natural storyteller as well, and I kind of get the idea of him. But I think with what I did with these characters, it was really nice to not have a narrator, but have like a point of view character and speak from them from the heart, which doesn't happen very often.
No, but that's what I mean. It's not forced, is it? It's very authentic. It's very natural.
Yeah. So I don't hear a lot of fiction like that. So it's quite nice to have it straight from the point of view. I've been reading a lot of Neil Gaiman at the moment, and I got you to do the introduction to the last episode. where we have traveling thousands of miles and thousands of years. And I noticed that basically I'd listened to Neil Gaiman, I was going to do an introduction to that episode, but it was such a beautiful introduction. After I wrote it, you read it. And I was like, well, there's no need to have a better introduction to that. But I don't know if there's going to be sort of a move to more narration in it now, or to me, it's just what comes out. And it's been intriguing to know that people like it, because I did it just out of sort of getting.
This was like a journal of a type to begin with, wasn't it? Because that's what I found quite startling. Like, you think of all. I'm personally not a horror fan. I like happy endings and Disney movies.
Yeah, I think Deal agree.
So I found it quite hard listening to the podcasts in the beginning, because they really had quite a dark horror theme to them. But there are people out there that are really good at writing these kind of stories. And I think you're really good at writing these kind of stories. Yeah. And I think we all, as individuals, have those kind of dark thoughts and those dark impulses and whatnot that come out occasionally, but being able to put it down on paper and personify it as a character it must be quite liberating, actually, because a lot of people don't do that. They're like, oh, I can't, I don't know, that person in the street who annoyed me, I want to punch them in the face. But, naturally you wouldn't, you'd be like, oh, I can't say that, I can't think that. Whereas writing it down, I think for you really enjoyed, because it was a way of expressing those kind of feelings.
I like with Will that he is such a horrible character.
He's such a bastard.
Yet you still kind of like him. And even with the Professor, he has got such a dark side, and he has done horrible things in the past. Yeah, and yet you like him. Like Lucifer, you like her, even though you're kind of told that you really shouldn't. And with Sally, and I like the idea of having one of these characters that can do good things and bad things, yet can still be quite.
But isn't that what makes it kind of so great, is the fact that you've got these characters with such depth to them, but the way in which you write the stories is you can relate and understand them as individuals. I think that's what people really like about listening to it, is you can picture yourself as the characters. Even when it gets a bit like mysterious and mythology based, it's a great story with genuine feelings and emotions that every single person goes through.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's got their shadow, haven't they? As you say, there's the dark and the light, and we've all got it. And,
but it's exactly, it's the dark and the light. So as much as Will is a bastard, like, he is also like a oddly likable character.
Yeah, exactly.
It's difficult to find a character that has so many kind of facets to them. Yet, what I'm trying to do with the characters that we have is that they have so many facets to them. Now,
it's not really deliberate, though, is it? It's just the way you write.
It's just the way it goes, isn't it? And I've got to say, I've got to thank Greg a lot for inputs. And when I hand over the script to him and he puts his own bits in there, it's always like an addition that is
I don't know who gets more excited about doing the episodes, you or Greg, actually. The two of you have genuinely become really good friends through this process.
Yes,
and that's really nice to see, actually, because especially during COVID and even after COVID, like, everyone was really isolated. Everyone hadn't really been up to much. And we all kind of want to forget that. But you guys haven't even met in person. But the laughs that you two have about the podcast and even about life is just really nice.
Sending over the scripts and then getting them back from you guys, honestly,
we will sit there and we ourselves sometimes with laughter.
We just last week's episode, before I do any editing or anything like that, we just sat there before we went to bed and listened to you guys doing your bits of the script. And honestly, we were peeing our pants. We were just sat there going, it just suits it so well. So yeah, thanks guys. It's making it what it is. and the listeners out there who are enjoying it, we don't. We're not really doing it out of anything else but for having fun, and that you're joining us is the best bit about it, really. So
it would be nice if it made probably some more money, but
but I don't think it'll ever be one of the huge Joe Rogan podcasts. Really, it's always going to be a little niche kind of area. So if it does or if it doesn't really matter. But,
no, it doesn't, because it is fun at the end of the day. But
yeah,
we do really appreciate it when people like, who was it who donated this week? You mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah, but it's just like people that, because they left a comment even saying, like, keep it up. And every little comment like that, every feedback from a listener is super appreciated, because it takes it away from just being the four of us these days to being like, this is actually something that people are enjoying. And thanks, guys.
Definitely.
Thanks you two, and
amazing.
thanks all the listeners.
Acknowledgement, isn't it, for fans writing? And
I don't really know how I roped everybody into doing this, but thank you. Because Dee, thank you so much, because Lucy is such a great character. Greg, honestly, thank you for, like, sometimes I message you out of the blue going, I don't know what to do, and then you come up with like 10 different premises, and I'm like, wow, okay. And Yvonne, you step in to be whatever character you need to be and stuff, and enjoy it. So it has been lots of fun.
It's like my aspirations of being an actress on a small scale.
Yeah, we sit here and drink wine and do. We'll try and say.
Waiting for. Go on.
I was just going to say, one of the things for me that's been so interesting. It's been just over a year now that we've been doing this together, and. Just picking up on what you said there, Yvonne, about how in the early days of the podcast, it was consistently quite dark at times, right? There was some pretty hardcore horror, and it was pretty dark, right? And don't get me wrong, it kind of still is, but it feels like it's got different spokes in the wheel now that it didn't necessarily have at the time. Now, whether you've got some original fans who've felt that that's straying from the path that they wanted it to follow or not, I don't know. Oh, we've dropped.
So we got kicked off there. So
we're back.
Hooray!
Hello.
Technology.
So what I was going to say, and you'll do some editing magic, and it'll sound like I'm saying this for the first time. So I'll just pause for a second in case you want to snip it right about there. Was early in the days when it was just you on your own and you were going through your first flush of expression with this medium. There was quite a lot of darkness going on and quite a consistent level of horror, I think, with it. And it's developed over time. It's sort of organically changed over time. You've brought in additional characters, and then eventually with Sally, and then later with me, or Simon, I should say, you brought in additional actors to play some of those characters. And of course, now you've brought in some additional writing input too. So it's all changed, right? It's grown, it's changed, and it's a little different to how it was. It's evolved, I think, is the word I'm probably groping for a bit there. And, I've certainly felt that, on the one hand, a bit nervous that some of your original listeners might be like, well, it's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
Right. I suspect there are some, and I think I'm okay with it, because I think at times it is. But what's different about it now is that there are so many spokes in the wheel. You said that your brother said this to you this week, I think, that sometimes it flips several times within an episode.
Yeah.
Right. And it really keeps you on your feet as to what's coming next. Is it a laugh? Is it an act of horror? Is it something different? And that made me want to think about, well, what's been my very favourite episode so far? And I think it was episode 149, and it was A Werewolf Feels Grief. And I didn't see that episode come.
That's the most listened to one.
Is it really? It was so powerful.
Yeah, that's for some reason. Out of all
That's
of the,
mine as well.
out of all the episodes that have been looked at, that's the favourite one of the fans, as it were.
Why is it your guys' favorite episode then?
I think it's the first time we saw the werewolf actually feel something.
Yeah.
Literally feel something.
Yeah, had to have feelings.
Yeah, and
his heart broke in that episode. His heart broke in that episode, and we all felt it.
Because
I'm more of a lover, not a fighter, I think. So I like to see
that side of him.
Side.
Yeah.
I was going to get that line in that I was going to say today. Wasn't
Oh yeah, D had a line all prepped to say for this. What was it? Thich Nhat Hanh.
No, more like Thich Nhat Hanh, not Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes.
But but Thich Nhat Hanh.
It was a really hard episode to write, that one, because it made the werewolf seem human, which was kind of weird.
I think it's been interesting though, because I feel like the episodes actually reflect a lot on you as an individual. When you started the podcast, what was going on in your own personal life at the time was quite heavy, whereas where you were in the beginning versus where we are now, I think that comes through. Like Sally as a character is apparently based on myself as an individual in certain ways, but the fact that comes out, you've got like the original start of the story of when life is actually kind of a bit hard for you as a person, whereas I think the uplifting side of it is a reflection on how you're enjoying life a bit more, I think, at the moment.
Okay. God, that got deep, didn't it?
But I think that comes through in that episode, actually. I think it showed up.
Yeah.
I liked that episode a lot because of the fact it showed the character development side of it. But also I thought it was a reflection on you as well. I really like that. Because it's like
really
you've got a lovely little heart there.
I don't know whether to cry or not. Oh dear.
It was also the first episode in which I got to recite a little bit of Shakespeare at the end. Yeah. So that was a first for me too.
Does that excite you, Greg?
Well, I didn't realise it did until I did it. I can remember in the week leading up to that, Ben and I were exchanging messages all week long during the writing of that episode, and we started to bring in. I had this idea to bring in this quote from Romeo and Juliet right at the end, and to drop it in and rewrite it a little bit for the end of episode 149, and. We were kicking it around between us, and I think we kicked around between us some of the music from the film Romeo and Juliet, the love theme from Romeo and Juliet, which is, for people of a certain age, you'll remember the Our Tune from Simon Bates on Radio 1, and it was the saddest piece of music in the whole world, it seemed, and it was just about a broken heart and tragedy and loss and grief, and it seemed to fit so well. And everything about that episode was just right for me. I loved it.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how often you could drop that in there with it. I don't know how often it makes a big statement in that one episode, because it's not a frequently done thing. Maybe it's I don't know. It's kind of interesting that that's people's favorite.
I think my favorite actual episode is probably. Because as much as I know that there's like a slight reflection on the idea of life of the characters and individuals that are writing it, I think I actually kind of get into the Will character from a listening point of view. And I personally wouldn't want to be friends with Will in real life. He's a bastard. And I think because of that, my favorite episode is probably the one where he loses everything, actually, because I feel like he's got his comeuppance.
Oh, when he gets his ass beat down.
Because it's like he's such a dickhead to nearly everybody, and it just feels like it's kind of nice to hit him in the conies a little bit. That's terrible.
So that's the one where he's sat at the side of the canal?
Yeah, that's the first time he
watching his home burn.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was deep as well. That was a powerful one.
Yeah. Because
Right.
then the professor turns up and you don't really know as the professor how he's going to respond, do you? But you know he can't kill you.
Well, he tries 3 times, I think, doesn't he?
Life's deep, right?
Well, life is deep.
Life's deep. So,
Life
hey.
is deep.
Life is deep.
Shit
So
does
maybe-
happen.
Yeah.
So maybe it's going to get deeper in the future. Let's
Yeah.
try and inspire.
I think that's one of the nice things about the podcast, though, because you're not just sitting there giving it a fluffy angle from every episode is the same. You've got no idea what's going to happen. You've got no idea where it's going to go. And it's just an organic development each week. So when people sit there and be like, how do you write stories? It's literally like you just feel inspired and go with it. And that's the really nice thing about it. And I think that's what makes it actually work. There's no script. It's just what's in your head, what's in Greg's head. Mostly the two of you do the majority of the work.
Yeah,
but it's brilliant.
It is greatly appreciated that we can now work together on it. I mean, you know, it is. You've got a real job and everything, which means that you can't put as much time in. So it's really appreciated that you can step in and help me with premises and the directions and stuff. Because I think you've got a feeling as much for the characters as I have. So we know where they're going. We both have the same kind of idea of the characterizations, and I think we have as much input to them and understanding them as each other, which is really, really cool. Because I remember saying something about, it was quite a while ago now, something about the professor, and you going, no, I won't do that. I was like, okay.
But I do that with Sally as well.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
He'll write a script, and because I get to kind of sit here at home with them, he'll just leave me alone with whatever he's written for me and Sally, and I'll just kind of edit it and Sally it up a bit.
And I think with Dee, I think you're not a great fan of the horror kind of side of stuff, are you? So now you've said that, Lucy, I like the fact that Lucy's now not really going to do anything like that. She might be the overall actor in this game and what's going on, but she's going to let those individual characters make their own choices on how they behave. She might stir the pot, but it's not that she's going to kill anyone or hurt anybody or do anything nasty. It's like, well, you're going to make these decisions, and I kind of agree that that's her position. It'd be like our character God. He would stand over it and go, well, you're making your own decisions on how you're going to behave. I'm not actually going to do anything bad. It's you that are going to. And I think that when that came to me, that Greg said, oh, you know, that you have, and I think it's the viewpoint of Lucifer, is that I'm making you make your own choices, you know, and I really liked that. When I was writing your character, it gave a bigger story arc to it, in the fact that, she wouldn't do anything awful to people. She would allow them to make their own decisions to do the awful things. I think when in the lift, when Will's going up to heaven, and it's quite interesting that she's like, you know, overlooking hell, and she's like, well, this is what happens to those people, and this is what happens to those people. And then she literally says, but it's their choice. It's their realization of their own guilt that makes them decide what they're going to do. And it's not anything to do with me. They feel bad, and this is how they're going to treat themselves. You don't feel bad, so I don't know what to do with you. And I thought that was a really good insight to that character. It was a fantastic insight to it. But
I think Lucy's my favourite character, actually.
Yeah.
Not only because you do such a brilliant job at voicing her, but because she's just a bit of a badass. You really do. I remember the first time you did her accent, and then when you morphed it, because maintaining the French side was so difficult. I just think you really captured her as a character, and I just sit there and I get a little smug grin on my face when I hear the little shit stirring that she's up to.
It is good.
I think it was. I was a bit nervous because I thought of being evil and just being more kind of just objectionable and horrid and yuck, and I thought, well, I can't really. I mean, obviously, Greg might have a different opinion. That's not really.
I thought you were going to say, obviously, I can. I mean,
I don't know if I could do that. But I'm big up for the people make their own choices. Everyone has choices.
Yeah,
but we
take
spoke about
responsibility
Lucy.
for their actions and all that.
We spoke together about the Lucy character when you were trying to find her voice.
Yeah,
and we did.
The French was cool, but I just couldn't. Yeah,
we did sort of settle on this idea that why does Lucifer's voice have to be frightening? Wouldn't it be even more frightening if it really wasn't frightening, right? Because it's like, how could all the bad in the whole world come from there, right? It
She's
just
got
doesn't
a lot
seem
of power,
right, you know?
and yet she just sort of seems to talk in a very sort of, cool kind of
I
way.
like to
What I love
It's
about
all in
her
a matter of.
is she doesn't really do, as you were saying, Fen, she really doesn't do anything.
No.
She just enables it, right? She just puts the banana skin in front of you and lets you slip over it, right? You choose to put your foot there. And she's great at doing that. The one thing she did do where she really did interfere was she moved Sally. She physically moved Sally, right? But apart from that, she really just gave a little clue here, a little bit of deceit there, and everybody else made their own minds up. It was a lot like Much Ado About Nothing, Shakespeare again, sorry about that, but it was a lot like that in that everybody was reading signs and clues and getting them wrong, making the wrong choices based on what they saw in front of them, reading the wrong message from the words that were in front of them. And we saw a little bit of that right at the end of that series when you had Simon sat in the bar, blind drunk, talking to Fliss behind the bar, and she's like, oh yeah, but what if she really meant this, or what if it was really that? And then his whole world kind of fell apart again, didn't it?
Yeah. No, it was. I think the great thing about this is that the characters are kind of writing themselves. It is that they just write themselves, and like I say, the reason why we're doing this cast catch up is because the characters now are waiting to speak to me once more. We'll get there though, I'm sure. Yeah, but well, thank you very much, guys, for doing this. This has been very good of you because we now have a podcast for Wednesday, which is a good thing. I would like to say Greg is a great writer by himself. He helps me out an awful lot, but all his books and everything, his website and all the stuff are in the description alongside the podcast. Thanks to Dee, I can't wait to read Marmalade's diary. That will be fantastic when that comes out. Yvonne, my partner, thank you very much for doing Sally. This podcast wouldn't be the same without you all. So go down to the description, look for Greg's books. They are fantastic. Il Lupo 0.20 and The Bridge, and I know he's writing some gangster stuff at the moment, which I've managed to have a little bit of a read of, which is really good. A fantastic writer himself. So yeah, thank you guys, and I hope that the podcast will keep going. We can see if we can keep it going. So thanks for your input. So anyone, would you like to say anything, Greg, at the end, or about Lupo or anything like that?
Well, long live Werewolf the podcast, but also, I'm so grateful to everybody that listens to this podcast every week and supports the show, because from a selfish perspective, we have so much fun doing it. And the heart and soul might drop out of it if nobody listened to us, right? So please keep listening. Tell your friends, because the more of you that listen, maybe, the more fun we'll have doing it. And I genuinely think people do their best work when they're smiling. So think about that.
So well, thank you to Branston, thank you to Marmalade, and thank you to you two guys. Thank you, Yvonne, and
Thank you.
Hope the future goes well. And I will stop it there, and we'll call it quits.